Welcome into the Locked On Knicks podcast. Gavin, Schall, Alex Wolfe. Another miserable night to be a Knicks fan as the Knicks fell 124-117 to the Bradley Beal-less Washington Wizards. Kemba Walker was incredible, 44 points. The issue was no one else on the Knicks was even average. Maybe Alec Burks, maybe Julius Randle. I don't know. It was a rough night, Alex.
Yeah, we're going to talk about why this is probably one of the most disappointing losses of the season so far. Why I don't know. I expected more out of Julius Randle than we got in this game for sure. We'll talk some about that, about just what led to this game ending up squandering probably the best game of Kemba Walker's last 3 years or so of his career. So we'll talk about that, get into Kemba's game, of course, and talk about why he was so great despite the rest of his team being terrible. And then we'll also talk about the Derrick Rose injury to close out the implications that's going to have for the Knicks, with him now out 6 to 8 weeks with ankle surgery. So all that's coming up next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. We wanted to thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day. We are now available on all platforms, including, and you know this, if you are seeing our debatably beautiful faces on YouTube. Comment if you agree, comment if you disagree. Throw a like, throw a subscription. Regardless, I am Gavin Schall, a play-by-play broadcaster. He is Alex Wolfe, editor-in-chief of the Strickland, the finest Knicks website on the internet. They do recaps for games like this one. They have tons of great merch. They have a Patreon where you can get some fantastic podcasts and other content and benefits. Alex will come over to your house and massage you while you watch a Knicks game if you go for the $5,000 tier. So that's really exciting. A new addition that has not been announced until this very moment. The New York Knicks falling 124-117 to the Washington Wizards. Kemba Walker turned back the clock, an insanely good game, maybe the Knicks' best performance in a year plus. Like the Julius Randle Hawks game is the other one that comes to mind for me. But it was not enough because he got very, very little help, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, that was unfortunately the big story to me. And like when we were before the show discussing like, okay, what do we want to talk about? Like, we should want to talk about Kemba scoring 44 first, but my first thought is just like, this game was terrible. This was easily one of the most disappointing games of the entire season. It probably is the most disappointing game of the entire season to me, because I just don't understand why this team is like allergic to building multi-game momentum. You know, it seems like every time that we get our hopes up and say, you know, other than the 5-1 start, when obviously, you know, everything was clicking for a few games and they were looking really good. Ever since then, it kind of just seems like, you know, they'll win a game and then just like completely crap the bed the next game and go on like a 3-game losing streak. And then they'll win one and foolishly make us think like, yes, these are the things that we need to see out of you guys. Yes, Mitchell Robinson in the last game, you know, you looked like a force of nature. Like, oh, you're back in the starting lineup in this game. Make the most of it. And then he comes out and just kind of looks, he gets, quite frankly, like bullied by Daniel Gafford and made to look terrible, you know? And it's like, Daniel Gafford is not a guy that should be giving you trouble. Like, we're hoping that you can play against someone like Joel Embiid, you know, like, why is Daniel Gafford giving you fits right now? And, you know, then it's like, you know, Julius Randle, like, is it so much to ask that you give not even 100%? Let's just say you give 80% for the entire game at minimum, and then 100% when it really counts. That would be fine. But unfortunately, we see Julius go into like cruise control through half a game sometimes. You know, he came out and almost single-handedly like took the Knicks out of this game in the early third quarter. And it was terrible. It's like Kemba Walker had 28 points at the half. How are you not more excited? How are you not like more enthused and ready to get your first 2-game win streak in what feels like forever? And, you know, they did so many things well at times in this game, mostly Kemba based. And, you know, ultimately though, just they could never do enough good things to make this game happen, to make this win happen. And it's so frustrating seeing the Knicks just like time after time get our hopes up and think like, oh, this game really meant something. Like the last game. And granted, it was against the Pistons, but we saw a lot of good things happen in that game. And to then turn around and have this game against the Wizards, who learn right before the game, basically, that they're not going to have Bradley Beal, their top scorer. Which, like, I saw you joked on Twitter, and you joked before we started, like, the Wizards are 4-0 without him. Yeah, okay. I mean, but he's their best player. Period. Like, it's the rough equivalent of if like Julius Randle was actually playing super good and had to be out for the Knicks. Like, that would be a blow. That takes away a lot of what you do as a team. And although maybe we just need to see Julius out for a game or two at this point and see what the team looks like. It just give him a little reality check. But anyway, I don't know. I'm rambling too much, Gavin. I mean, I'll just throw it to you. Like, how are you feeling after this game? Like, because I honestly, this is probably the most like angry and dejected I've been after a Knicks game this season. I think, which is really saying something because there's been some real stinkers so far this year.
Yeah, maybe I'm in an even scarier place. I'm in a place of acceptance, right? I mean, this is basically who the Knicks have been all year. We'll get into it more in the third segment, right? But I mean, Derrick Rose is along with Emmanuel Quickly and Obi Toppin, their swing pieces this year. Like, you look at all their best lineups, it's those three guys pretty much. And Obi and Rose in particular are really the common factors in driving the bench to all those dominant stretches. Rose on the season, again, it's hard to divorce his success from Obi, but this is something that Fred Katz pointed out. The Knicks are essentially 13 points better per 100 possessions when he's on the floor. That's the difference between the 25-5 Suns and the 11-21 Pelicans. So it makes sense. Like, this is who they've been all year. They've sucked when they haven't had Derrick Rose. They've sucked when they haven't had Obi Toppin. They didn't have Derrick Rose. They had like a half version of Obi Toppin, who was inexplicably playing small forward for portions of the first half because Tibbs loves the Taj at the 4 experiment. Also, they're obviously very low on guys. That did not work out. That was a really bad stretch. It was a bad stretch when they tried Randle at the 3 as well. But this is pretty much who the Knicks are. And even against the Wizards team that is very average with Bradley Beal, and a record aside, probably pretty average without him, there just wasn't really enough there, despite Kemba's insane night, which I think should have covered up for any other flaws, to your point. But you just look up and down the team, and I mean, it was Randle getting going late, but still really, really struggling with his shot, struggling to make an impact. Like, didn't really have a stretch where he was dominant until it was too late. Evan Fournier, I thought, was just, I mean, that's the name I'll focus on. He was just an absolute disaster on both ends of the floor. 2 for 13, did hit that one big shot off the bench in the closing minutes, but outside of that, really, really struggled offensively. Probably his worst defensive performance this year, which, if you've been listening to us or have a pair of eyeballs and are interested in the New York Knicks, you are well aware of is a very high bar for it to be his worst defensive performance of the season. But he was an absolute turnstile. And time again, he kept getting other guys in trouble. Like, it would be Mitchell Robinson having to scramble out of position to try and cover up for his mistake. And they gave up a lot of lobs, and give the Wizards credit. They were getting tons of assists, but it's easy to get assists when you get that initial penetration and all of a sudden a defense is in rotation. So I'm not even dispirited, because all this says to me is guys like Miles McBride and Quentin Grimes and of course Emmanuel Quickly will have their chance when they get back to health. And I think this could be a very different team with them playing significant minutes. Maybe not more successful, but at the very least a lot more fun.
Yeah, and at the very least giving us something to look forward to, because a game like this, if you don't get a win, becomes worthless. I mean, literally, you could just throw this game out the window. It doesn't matter at this point. There were no positive takeaways from this, because even with Kemba scoring 44 points, like, the only young guy that played that got significant run, because like Toppin got 13 minutes, but Tibbs basically alluded that all the guys that were in COVID protocols he didn't think were quite up to snuff, like conditioning wise yet. They hadn't gotten into practice or anything. So RJ was in street clothes. Grimes dressed, but Tibbs said after the game he just wasn't ready yet. And Obi clearly he thought wasn't ready for a decent amount of minutes, because he went with like the bizarre like Taj at the 3, or I guess 4 with Julius at the 3 lineup, when there was like no reason to go to that in this game if Obi was healthy. Just weird stuff. And obviously went with like Daniel House, who literally just got signed off the street today, and Damian Dotson over playing Quentin Grimes thanks to the conditioning there. So, it's just like the vets who kind of suck. And, like at least in the case of Fournier and Randall today, and, a bunch of replacement players today. So what do you get out of this game? Like nothing. That's why it's so dispiriting, because without a win here against a team that I think it was pretty obvious that if the Knicks had tried in this game, they were a better team than the Wizards, on this particular night, because the Wizards didn't exactly look like world beaters either. But like lackadaisical defense, letting up dagger threes, like inviting dagger threes to happen. Of course they did eventually, because the other team wasn't giving the Knicks easy looks, but the Knicks were giving the other team every opportunity to just like finish the game off and win it. And that's exactly what the Wizards did. So, props to them for actually making the shots that were being gifted to them. But like, for example, there was just the possession that made me want to just like throw something at my TV late in the game was like some wizard drove into the paint. I forget who it was, and went to kick to the corner to find Aaron Holiday, who was like all alone in the corner with some defenders that could have started trying to rotate to him, but didn't even make an attempt. Mitchell Robinson gets his hand up, and wasn't exactly the most active guy all night. And I really didn't like, again, how he just got like completely worked by oh my God, Daniel Gafford, whose name I almost forgot, but like manages to get a hand up, deflects the pass, gives the Knicks an extra second to recover, because it was still going towards Holiday, but it was vastly slowed down. He had to move a little out of position to get it, and nobody even goes for it. Mitch has to like fight through a couple bodies to try to just get close enough to even contest the shot, and it's just like a perfect silky smooth jumper, because Holiday had like 7 minutes to like sit there, order a cappuccino, wait for it to cool, take a couple sips, and then take a shot before anyone was even in the vicinity. And it's just like, there's no way you're going to win games. I don't care if Kemba Walker scores 75 points. You're not going to win those games if you're giving up shots like that. And that's the most frustrating part about this team, is that they can't seem to, even in imminently winnable games, they can't seem to find it in themselves to just do the little things to actually win a game. They just seem completely content to lose them at this point.
Well, Alex, it sounds like you want to unsubscribe from this next season. I'll tell you how to do just
I
that.
do.
You have to get Truebill. Do you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill to take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill. These companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts, and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap, and your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions, so you don't have to. Truebill's over 2 million users and help save them over $100 million. So don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now, truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA.
And today's show is also brought to you by Built Bar. This holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar. Built Bar, filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. There's so many flavors you'll have a hard time choosing. We have a raspberry or mint brownie, a cherry or double chocolate, cookies and cream, or peanut butter brownie. No offense to peanut butter brownie. It's always cookies and cream. And Built Bar gives you that extra fuel you need to bust down those mall doors and battle all the holiday shoppers. Though today is Christmas Eve. So I desperately hope, if you celebrate Christmas, that you're done shopping by today, because the stores are cleaned TF out. I would not want to be out there right now. Or maybe you're just standing in endless shopping lines. Okay, maybe you forgot a turkey or something and you need to get that. Or a ham, Christmas ham, whatever. Fine. Okay, if you're waiting in line, though, you might want a Built Bar. It'll help you out a lot. Give you that extra something to keep you going. So throw one in your jacket or purse. You never know when you're going to need it. And if you're friends with Santa, make sure to write him a last-minute note. Tell him to throw some Built Bars in those stockings. With so many flavors, it'll make your Christmas morning a happy one. So if you want to get some Built Bars for yourself, go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, Gavin, for at risk of, after all that holiday Built Bar talk, at risk of sounding like a Grinch, and not celebrating the one good thing about this game, I feel like we should talk about the Kemba Walker performance at this point. So obviously, amazing stat line from Kemba. Plays 43 minutes, shoots 14 to 27, 7 to 14 from three, 9 to 9 from the free throw line, which is very impressive. 44 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. I did not realize how close he was to a triple double. That's crazy. And I mean, honestly, it has to be probably his best performance since Charlotte. I don't have all of his Boston game logs in front of me, but I know that he can't have had a game this good since Charlotte. And this maybe even is better than his last year in Charlotte. I mean, this was vintage Kemba Walker. I mean, it was just I can't believe that this guy is the same guy that, I mean, legitimately did play bad enough to get benched early in the season. Early in the season, he was so tentative. He seemed like he was trying to find his way with the team, and that he was like trying to not step on toes. And as a result, was just not really going for shots. And it was just a huge mess. And, you know, this game, he played so confidently. And I mean, this was just sort of like the culmination of what we've seen since he's gotten his way back into the lineup. But he was, looking for his own shot all the time. He was just saucing guys up off the dribble, just not even breaking ankles necessarily, but just, using that amazing handle that's probably at its best, like top 1% in the league, as far as handles go. And just using that to his full advantage, using that to generate step backs, using that to get into the lane, using that to set up his teammates, even, to create space for himself and use that to create opportunities for others. It was just beautiful basketball from Kemba. I mean, peak Kemba Walker and the best of what he can bring you on a basketball court. And it was really, really fun to watch. And I mean, again, I'm so angry that the game itself was so terrible, because this was one of the most enjoyable like single game performances from a Knick in like the last 10 to 15 years, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it was a real bummer. I mean, we've wondered for years what Steph Curry would look like on the New York Knicks. This was pretty much that, right? Kemba just draining insane three after insane three. I think, well, he only had one where he got the 4-point play, but he had another one where he essentially got knocked down. The three hit on the right wing over the double team in the fourth quarter. And it was one of those performances like where he was like topping himself, right? And it's this amazing thing when a player gets in sync like that with the Garden crowd, and it feels like as the crowd gets louder and louder, they're like, all right, well, you guys haven't seen this yet, or, oh yeah, you like all those threes, watch me toast this dude with a double crossover and get all the way to the rim. Oh, they're guarding me inside now, behind the back, leave a guy in the dust, drain a straight on triple. And then the shot he hit to end the half, that was just the perfect capper of it, where he tried to get off that three, right? But he basically stumbled, didn't really have a clean look, ends up falling down and hitting an 8-footer with like 2 seconds left on the clock. And the confluence of that and Mike Breen's announcing, like it was just, and the crowd, just the perfect storm. And I've had very few moments where I've been more excited this season. And to your point, a shame that it was wasted, but it was all the more painful because, again, he started having that Steph-like effect in the second half where he's getting double teamed way out on top. And that should have made life so easy on everyone else on the Knicks. The one, Alec Burks was taking advantage of it in the first half. He got, I think, 3 threes off of Kemba passes. Obi Toppin had this great play in the fourth quarter. I remember last year I would always say, God, I'd love to see this guy get a chance to play with a Steph Curry or a Damian Lillard instead of an Elfrid Payton, because I think he could really be unlocked as a short roll passer and as a rim runner, obviously. But we finally got to look at that, where Kemba got double teamed through this really precise toss over the top to Obi, caught it in stride, double pump, wrap around to Mitch for a dunk. And I'm like, yeah, I would love to see more of that. And maybe we will, because Kemba Walker has a new lease on life as a New York Knicks. Someone who we thought would probably never appear in a Knicks uniform again is all of a sudden their starting point guard, I think, for the next 8 weeks.
Yeah, now he's the heart and soul of the Knicks. Like, go
Yeah.
figure. He goes from a pariah to like indispensable. It's just
That sums up
unbelievable.
the season pretty well.
Yeah, unbelievable how things change so quickly. But yeah, I'm in agreement. I mean, with the Rose news, which we'll talk about in a second, like obviously this means that Kemba is going to be Kemba's going to be featured quite a bit now. I think that he's locked down starting for a while. You know, if he keeps playing the way that he has the last 3 games, all the stuff that we said about, you know, yeah, his defense is definitely taking a hit, so he needs to play at a high level on offense. These past 3 games have been a perfectly high level on offense for him. Like, if he can become a 20-point per game scorer again, that's more than enough to make up for the defensive deficiencies. Like, then the guy that I'm going to start worrying about as far as the defensive deficiencies is Evan Fournier. Like, can Fournier on nights when he's not shooting the ball actually play defense? Because that comes in fits and spurts with him. And it seems, you know, if he's not hitting shots, at least somewhat consistently, he lets that affect him on the defensive end a lot. Unfortunately, you can say that a lot for Julius Randle too. And so both those guys, I think, need to sort of figure their stuff out as far as, you know, being able to give that effort on the defensive end, even when things aren't working out on offense. Though, you know, I talked about that on here a couple shows ago. Like, I kind of think maybe there's something brewing where those two in particular, Randall and Fournier, just don't really like each other because it just seems like, I don't know, they share the court with each other a lot of minutes, and in those particular minutes, they always seem pretty miserable. So I don't know. But let's take our last break here. We'll very quickly let everybody know about betonline.ag and then talk about the Derrick Rose news, and which also sort of it combined with the Kemba resurgence sort of makes a total story there. But first off, BetOnline has you covered this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football continues its march through the college bowl season and the pro football playoffs, BetOnline remains your number one spot for all sports action this season. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports, so don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, and so to lead off this final segment here, Gavin, obviously we saw the news. It was very poorly timed, very inconsiderate for the news to break like an hour after we recorded our post-COVID rotations pod, which we had to add like a little disclaimer at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we heard the news, but no, we're not going to re-record this like 40-minute pod we just did.
It's like they don't think about us sometimes. It really feels that way. I know it's not true, but it feels that way.
Yeah, what is Knicks PR even doing with the timing on these things, man? I don't understand it. But anyway, yeah. So the Knicks announced yesterday Derrick Rose, or I don't know if the Knicks actually announced that one. It might have been a Shams tweet, or I know Woj gave the updated timetable. Anyway, the initial timetable we see is Derrick Rose is out. He had ankle surgery. Yesterday he's going to be out 8 weeks, and then will be reevaluated. That's pretty bleak. And then we get Woj comes out and says, actually, I have the real scoop. He might only be out 6 weeks. So I don't know, whatever. Yeah, 6 to 8 weeks, let's say. And then he's going to be reevaluated and stuff. Probably out through at least the trading deadline and the All-Star break with that timetable. So a pretty long time Rose is going to be out now. The Knicks do have that somewhat favorable schedule still coming up. I think Fred Katz was the one that tweeted it after the game that I think it's their next 14 games are all against teams that are currently under 500. So key stretch for the Knicks coming up here that they'll have to do something in without Derrick Rose. But once, you know, Rose comes back, hopefully he's going to be coming back to a playoff push situation, but might be coming back to a tire fire. So I guess we'll see. But Gavin, like, what were your thoughts when this got announced? And, you know, how do you think things are going to play out in Rose's absence here while he's not with the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could shape the direction of the next season, right? Going towards a more tanky direction, and not in an intentional sense, but we noted in the first segment, this team is just vastly different without Derrick Rose, or at least we think they are, right? Because we haven't really seen the full roster, even sans Rose, really get a chance to play together cohesively. And with that, I mean, Deuce McBride and Quentin Grimes. And look, those two guys, they're not going to be saviors, right? I don't want to overhype them on each having one great game, but they bring elements that I think could catalyze the rest of this Knicks team, because we keep saying the separator between last year's Knicks and this year's Knicks is that effort, is the fact that regardless of shooting, they played with an intensity and heart and enthusiasm every single night. I think two rookies who, again, just play extremely hard can bring that out in the rest of the team. Is all of a sudden, if you're Julius Randle or Evan Fournier, you look pretty bad if you're not running down the court, and the rookie's doing it every single time. So I think there's something to be said for that. And in terms of, I mean, what I keep saying, my stated mission is to make this season more fun. That is the positive I'm taking out of this. The other one is that Kemba Walker, I mean, seemingly has the Knicks back, and Derrick Rose is a better defender than Kemba Walker, but it's not like he's not spectacular on that end. So if Kemba can keep this up offensively, which is a very tall task, and we have to note, I mean, that's sort of been where the rubber hits the road with Kemba the last few seasons. It's like, can he string it together for very long stretches? Like when he gets a long break, he comes back and looks really, really good. And then whatever is going on with his knee or his body in general, he just doesn't maintain that burst. And maybe that means a lot of Emmanuel quickly, a lot of Deuce McBride to ensure that Kemba doesn't wear down like that. But if Kemba has one more great stretch of basketball in him, then this will be much less of a big deal for the Knicks than it otherwise would be. But inarguably a consequential loss for New York.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate because, like you said, some of the best lineups for the Knicks, especially during that early stretch when, the starters were so pronouncedly bad, where the starters were like a -15 net rating and the bench was like a +20. It was Rose, Quickly, Burks. I mean, that was like, and Obi obviously, and then pick your center. But like those four just made such a dynamic combo because they were just always looking to push the pace, always looking to pass to each other, whatever. And I do think that Rose has done a good job of sort of rubbing off on Quickly and sort of instilling some of that in him. I think Quickly's looking to push the pace a lot more now and be sort of the initiator in space. And but he uses, instead of Rose's like quick burst to get to the hoop, Quickly uses kind of more of like that decisiveness and shiftiness and whatever in transition. But he's looking to make those sort of passes that Rose was making before. I think Quickly has good chemistry with Toppin still. I also think getting the opportunity to see Deuce McBride maybe run with that bench unit will be a good thing, especially if Kemba can keep playing well as a starter now, which I can't believe how quickly our brains and the discourse and everything has shifted in like 3 games. But I mean, it was literally, we went from like Kemba's never going to play another minute for the Knicks to, oh, well, that was fun. It was nice that Kemba got one last hurrah, to like, all right, maybe the Knicks should start carving out some minutes for Kemba off the bench, to now like, oh yeah, well, Rose is injured now, so Kemba's just going to be the starter for the rest of the season after we thought that he was dead in the water like 3 days ago. But
it feels like, I don't know if you're an Office fan, but it feels like when Ryan came back with blonde hair, and then they were like, oh wow, Ryan's back. That's weird. And then he's like, and then all of a sudden they're running the Office again.
Yeah. Or honestly, almost like, yeah, I guess that would work. Or even when Ryan comes back as the boss, when it's just like completely out of left field, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, you were the temp like 5 days ago, and now you're the manager of the whole freaking joint.
Yeah, we just need Kemba to have like a beard and like just and treat Tibbs as Michael Scott in that scenario and just bully him.
Yeah, Kemba could just like, I guess instead of the beard, because he already has one, like get the blonde tips maybe.
Yeah,
so he'll use the first analogy.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a pivot off this, but is Tibbs pissed right now? Like, is some element of him annoyed? Like, he's like, obviously, like he's a homicidal maniac in terms of wanting to win. So I'm sure he loved watching Kemba do that overall. But some part of him has to be like, you're making me look so bad right now, dude.
I don't think so. Like, I think ultimately Tibbs, the one thing that I sort of believe about what he says, even though he doesn't really put it into practice that often, I think that he doesn't care about being right or wrong as long as the team's winning. Because he's made some suspect decisions both years so far. I mean, with like the Elf thing, I think, he'll ride that till the day he dies, of like, yeah, well, we were still winning with him as a starting point guard. So clearly it was fine. And all of us just kept wanting to be like, yeah, but why keep shooting yourself in the foot over and over in the beginning of games? And Tibbs' explanation was basically like, well, it's working. And so I think that's what it is with Kemba. Like, he saw something that wasn't working. He took Kemba out. Now, of course, the win-loss record didn't reflect the Knicks being better, but they at least were playing better. And lost a number of really close games to really good teams. So you could sort of say like, okay, there's progress here, whatever. Like maybe removing Kemba was an okay thing to do. Then the team starts kind of backsliding again. Now Kevin gets back in. I don't think Tibbs really cares. I think he's just like, whatever. Like he even said it after the last game, and part of it's politicking, but like he's like, I love Kemba Walker. I love seeing him play good, but I'm just going to keep trying to play the players that can win us games. And I also think that Tibbs maybe this year instead of last year, where last year was like a found money year, Tibbs knows that there's expectations on this year. So if he's got to eat a little bit of crow here and there and make some lineup decisions, which like I give him credit, he hasn't always made the right ones, but he's made lineup decisions more often than he did last year. That's for sure. As far as moving guys in and out of the starting lineup and out of the rotation, sometimes just by force of needing to do it, like recently, but even before the COVID outbreak, he was doing that a lot. So I don't know. I don't think he's feeling super spiteful about this. I think that he's just kind of he wants wins, and if Kemba's going to give him a chance to win right now, he's going to keep riding him, and see if he can do that for him, and ultimately it'll all be under the bridge if the Knicks do start stringing some wins together. But yeah, as of right now, I think he's just kind of like, whatever, say I'm wrong. I don't care. I think I was right in the moment, but I'm right now to have him back in the rotation too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's roll through some final notes on this one. I know you just talked for a bit, but I'm gonna throw it right back to you because I know you wanted to get in some stuff on Julius Randle.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know. So I'll throw this. I'll make it quick and then throw it back to you because I know we had kind of differing opinions, but I don't want to spend too long on Julius. But like on the surface, if you just were like stat watching, Julius had an okay game, like 10 to 22 shooting, 23 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. Like, cool. Yeah, that's not a bad stat line. But to me, I hated this game from him. I'm getting really tired of seeing, and look, I'm not saying that this is what it is because we're not in Julius Randle's brain or anything, but the way that he came out to start the second half, it comes across like he's pouting that like he's not getting the shine or something, because I don't know how you could come out in the second half completely lackadaisical. I mean, he was taking horrible shots. He wasn't taking care of the ball. He wasn't making great passes. And it's just like, why is he even playing at this point? Like, and he wasn't trying on defense, which is probably the most egregious thing with him is that, there was a sequence at one point where I think it was he drove in and thought he got fouled and did his usual thing where he complained about it for a second and then, got back on defense and, the Wizards weren't exactly on a fast break. So he got back and on that very next, possession for the Wizards got switched onto, I think it was Holiday on that possession and just like totally mails in a very defendable possession. Like we've seen Julius Randle at the point of attack when he's engaged, bottle guards up. And we saw that last year almost every game. The teams would try to test him on a switch and he would just bottle somebody up and like make them regret the decision that they wanted to ISO against him. And in this game, it was just like he just kept rolling the red carpet out. And like I'm getting really tired of that level of effort from him. It's sort of like the same thing that I've been talking about with Mitch. And even with like Fournier to a degree and stuff, it's just like I don't understand why this team has like this. Some nights it almost seems like they're controlled by a hive mind that's either like having a crappy night or having a great night. But more often than not lately, it's a crappy night. And like almost everybody will be affected. And, they all seem like they're just Debbie Downers out there and just not interested in playing winning basketball and just like persevering through things. They're more interested in just like complaining about calls, not playing defense, and then wondering why they're getting called for fouls and stuff. Like, and unfortunately, like Julius Randle is the leader of this team. He led this team to a really good season last year. He got the big extension, in the offseason to recognize that. And now he's just kind of like half mailing it in most of the time lately. And I'm getting tired of seeing like the best player on the team, who we know is the best player because of how he played last year, just consistently lollygag and like mail it in for entire quarters at a time to the point where then if he plays better later on, it doesn't even make up for it.
Yeah, he is 2 for his last 18 from 3 over the last 3 games. And I think that he is getting to the point where he's extremely frustrated with the Knicks' lack of spacing. And it's this weird thing, right? Because that was supposed to be, like I've said this before, but that was supposed to be the element of this team that was undebatably better this year than it was last year. And it just hasn't been the case. And I think a big portion of that is that Randle himself is not the same 3-point shooter, right? Like he created his own space a season ago. And this year, you see him when he's driving, and he threw some great passes out of it. But I remember the one at the end of the game where he was literally triple teamed when he got to the basket. And that's where I have a little bit of sympathy for the guy, because I can imagine that is just incredibly frustrating. Like he wants to bully someone. And in this game, the Wizards were literally just putting small dudes on him. Like they had Raul Neto on him in the first half. They had Spencer Dinwiddie on him in the second half, which Julius eventually found a way to take advantage of and got a couple of buckets. But they did that knowing that help was going to be able to come, because they didn't really have any fear of, like, they're like, Evan Fournier is 2 for 13. Like, shoot away, my guy. And it's been that type of stretch in season. It doesn't excuse the lack of effort. It doesn't excuse the inconsistency for Julius Randle. But if I'm looking for the most generous angle, it's that. And that a lot of times when he throws like great passes out of those situations, they don't really get paid off. That's not enough to explain how he's playing. But I think in some ways, maybe we should have seen this a little bit more, because like this is, again, the guy he was for the majority of his career. This is definitively not who he was last season, but this is who he was for long stretches. And I mean, not even for long stretches, like 6 of his 7 seasons or so. And we have to kind of like take a step back and say, all right, if he is this guy going forward, what does that mean for the New York Knicks? Is that time to trade him? Is that time to supplement him with Obi a little bit more? Probably a conversation for another day. Alex, was there anyone else you wanted to hit on before we wrap this one up?
No, I'm tired of talking about this game. This game sucked.
Fair. Jericho Simpson,
over
one
it.
cool dunk. I'll say that.
Jericho Sims. Yeah, cool.
He faked, like it was just a cool play. Like he faked like he was going to set a screen on Kemba, and then he just kept running towards the rim. Great pass by Burks. I don't want to say anything else. That was it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, so that's it for this episode of Locked On Knicks. That's it for this week. We're not gonna do like a immediate reaction to the Christmas Day game, because I'll be celebrating and visiting family and stuff. So we'll get the recap to the Hawks game out on Monday. So I'll take this opportunity to just say to anyone that celebrates, that listens, Merry Christmas to you. Hope you enjoy the holiday. To those of you that don't celebrate, hope you enjoy just the day off. Not that it wouldn't normally be. It's a Saturday this year, so I guess that's kind of bittersweet.
Yeah, well, Alex, my fellow tribesman, Chinese food in a movie. So
there you go.
Big day for us too.
Go see Spider-Man No Way Home if you haven't already
There you go.
on Christmas, and get some Chinese food. So yeah, but thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back next week. We got some great shows coming up for you as usual, leading up to then the new year. So hopefully new year, new Knicks at this rate. But we'll see how things go on Christmas Day. Till next time though, thanks for listening. We will talk to you guys all soon. Peace out.